Good afternoon and welcome to another series of the Futuresoft Lunch and Learn. I'm particularly excited to be handling today's session, and I do not take this opportunity for granted because it means a lot to me. Okay, so this afternoon rather, we're looking at the topic that says content creation strategies for enhancing B2B marketing and brand community and brand engagement. And in details, what we're particularly looking at is simple tools every business owner should know. Now, it's important to know that when we are talking about marketing, basically, we're looking at the use of some basic tools, simple tools. And these tools are some of the things we'll be getting to know and understand as we go through this session. So first, let's look at some of the terms of our conversation this morning. So first, what is B2B marketing? Now, as the name suggests, business-to-business marketing refers to the marketing of products or services to other businesses and organizations, and it holds several key distinctions from B2C, which is business to customers, business to customers, which is oriented towards consumers basically. And this is one-on-one consumership rather than having a business engage you at a top level. Now, let's look at B2B marketing in more detail. So B2B marketing in the broad sense is important that we understand that it has a different sorts of targeting and has to be very much more informational than B2C. And this is because businesses, before they engage, there are quite a number of things that goes into the decision for purchase. And one of those decisions includes comparison to other businesses, because when a business wants to purchase something, they are most likely going to have other businesses also pitch. So it's different from when you're selling to an individual and the person picks interest and pays immediately. A business needs to purchase a particular product or service and would need to give opportunities to other businesses. We want to look out for other businesses and begin to make comparison. And why do they do this? Because again, they want to be able to look at the bottom line revenue impact on that business deal that they are going to be making at the time. They want to be able to look at their return on investment. And this is not to say that a customer or a single consumer does not look at return on investment, but again, a business looks at return on investment in a broader perspective. They want to look at the overall impact. They want to look at how they are able to maximize what they are spending and the resultant effect of their expenditure, so that they can see how it brings in more businesses for them and how they are able to increase sales and enhance their profit margin. So these are some of the things that they consider before engaging another business or getting a product or services from another business or individual. So in the modern environment, B2B marketers often sell to buying committees with various key stakeholders, and this means for a complex and sometimes challenging landscape. But as data sources become more robust and accurate, the ability to impact our committees and reach buyers with relevant, personalized information is greatly improving. Now, who is B2B marketing for? It's important to know that any company that sells to other companies should know that they are going to be involving in B2B marketing. And this comes in many forms. We look at software as a service and subscriptions. We look at security solutions. We're looking at tools. We're looking at accessories. We're looking at office supplies. Just name, the list goes on and on and on. Now, many organizations fall under both the B2B and B2C umbrella. Some organizations, though, have also looked at the strategy that works for them and say, we cannot do B2C unless, again, it's a high-paying individual. for the particular product or service that we deliver or we have. Now, B2B marketing campaigns are aimed at any individuals with control or influence on purchasing decision. That's the more important one. Because at the long run, if you are not able to scale through the decision-making process of a business for engaging your own business, no matter how good your marketing is, you would not be able to get that business. And this can encompass a variety of titles and functions from low-level researchers all the way up to C-suite. I'll be talking about this in details because many times when people want to do B2B marketing, one of the things that they look forward to is the C-suite, and they don't also take note of the low-level researchers who might as well bring their contents to the face of the C-suite executives. Now, take note, many times a C-suite executive who would definitely be at the top or at the point where decision has to be made may not also be in a place where they will get to see your business or even get to do the research. So they want someone else to bring a plethora of the businesses for them to look at and say, okay, I look at this one, I look at this one, I look at this one, and then I'm able to make a decision. They may not have the research time, which is why even though we're looking at B2B marketing in a broader perspective, we're also going to be needing to target low-level researchers and C-suite executives. So now, how do we create a B2B marketing strategy? Now, it's important to know that competition for customers and even for attention is high. Building out a B2B strategy that delivers results requires thoughtful planning, execution, and management. And now let's look at a high-level look at the processes B2B companies use to stand out in a crowded marketplace. We know that the need for attention and attention span is not at par. You know why? Because we see that there's quite trillions of content in the online space on a daily basis calling for attention. And then there is a high level of deliverables, research, work, and all that needs to be done part time. So you see that many of these contents will just flip through the eyes of these people because, again, there's so much to catch up with. So it's best to have very good information, but highly precise as well. So how do you create a strategy that cuts across both, giving quality content, but yet very precise? So we want to look at some of the strategies you can use. Step one would be to develop an overarching vision. Now, we've probably heard the word, it's not like a cliche when you say failing to plan is planning to fail. But yes, but it still remains true. Fail to plan and plan to fail. Now, this truism remains eternally accurate. Before any decisions are made, you want to select specific and measurable business objectives. Then lay out the framework for how your B2B marketing strategy will achieve them. Answering these 7 B2B content strategy questions is a good place to start. Now, these are some of the questions. Oh, I think I've skipped those questions. Okay, but then let me share some of those questions from here. Now, one of the things we do at Futuresoft when we want to engage other businesses is we try to find out their short-term goal and we try to find out their long-term goal before we start a social media, which is part of what we use to design their social media strategy. And in the long run, we're able to look at their short-term goal. We want to see what are some of the products and services that they have and how would they like to be perceived. Now, when you're creating a vision, it's not just okay to create a vision and say, we want to be the first bank in Nigeria. Using a bank, for example, you want to be able to look beyond that definition and ask yourself certain questions like, while we are getting to the point of being the first bank, what are some of the values that we like to portray that would give us this kind of perception as the #1 bank in Nigeria? Now, you have to look at your value strategy and ask yourself, what kind of values would we like to portray? because it's a part of your vision, of your vision design, of your strategy. You want to be able to be perceived in a certain way. Now, take note that certain businesses cannot engage other businesses because of how the name of that brand will rub off on their own brand. So they want to be able to say, you see Coca-Cola and Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, every time it's like a collaboration, and they are telling you that a bucket of chicken and Coca-Cola. You know why? Coca-Cola is a global brand. KFC is a global brand. They want to be able to collaborate at that level and feel like it's comfortable to be up here. So if you're bringing a brand where the values you share has some sort of, I'm looking for the word, some sort of controversy that does not fit with the other brand, no matter how good you are, they may also consider that part of your perception, of your brand perception, before they engage your products and services. So in developing an overarching vision, it's important to ask yourself certain questions. How do we want to be perceived? What are some of the means we would like to achieve this? Now, your means is as important as the end. Many times we say that the end justifies the means. In business to business marketing, your means is as important as your end. They want to be able to see how did you get here? What are some of the stories behind your brand? You have to have a very beautiful story. Sometime last week when I was preparing for this, I was studying humanizing your brand, how to humanize your brand. And one of the videos I watched was when Steve Jobs was introducing the first iPhone into the market. He had a beautiful concept for introducing the iPhone. And he took it precept by precept, stage by stage, how they came from looking at the problem and then preferring a better solution and even patenting the idea. And that's how they came up with the first complete screen phone without keypads. Whoa, amazing. And they patented the idea. Now that storyline wants to make other brands feel like, oh, I love the strategy. I love the approach. I want to be involved with this brand. Their back-end process makes a lot of sense. It is part of your overarching vision. Now let's look at step 2. Define your market and buyer persona. Now, this is especially vital for B2B organizations, whereas B2C groups often have a wider and more general audience. B2B products and services are usually marketed to a distinct set of customers with particular challenges and needs. You have to understand that B2B are targeted to specific challenges and needs of a brand, not because while it's okay to say that people always buy as a result of emotions and all of this and that, B2B does not buy as a result of emotions. So you don't have to be able to win their emotion before you can sell. And this is not to say that their emotions are not important. This is to say that what a business looks at more is critical thinking, because again, you are not selling to one person. You're looking at probably a couple of 3 C-suite executives who are looking at it critically without necessarily trying to be biased with emotions. But how does this give us a return on investment? They're asking serious and critical questions. And so you have to understand that you are targeting particular needs. Okay, so the more narrowly you can define this audience, the better you'll be able to speak to them directly with relevant messaging. Now, step 3, identify B2B marketing tactics and channel. What are some of the channels? Now you've established solid intel around your target audience. You need to determine how and where you need to reach them. Now, the knowledge you've attained through the previous step will help guide you on this one. Now, let me show you. You want to answer questions like this about your ideal customers and prospects. 1, where do they spend their time online? What questions are they asking search engines? Which social media network do they prefer? How can you fill opportunity gaps that your competitors are leaving open? What industry experts, industry events do they attend? Okay, I'll share a story around this. I'm trying to remember this man's name, how he was able to sell to GT Bank. I'll recall his name in the middle of the story somewhere. So this consultant had wanted to get the attention of GT Bank to rebrand them. And what he needed to do was understudy how GT Bank runs, understudied their vision statement, understudied their values and all that. And so he looked out for where the CEO would usually hang out. So he had a club where he usually hung out, how he dressed, the kind of drink he always took when he was there, how he likes to sit down and read and do stuff. So this particular consultant decided to do all of this research, sent his intel, they went to gather a lot of intel, he sent his researchers, they did a lot of research on this CEO and the kind of things that draws his attention. And guess what he did? He began to model after the business, the CEO. So what he did was quickly start dressing like him. He would go to the same lounge and sit down. And the man liked wearing a hat. He would wear a hat like him, sit down, and be reading the kind of book he was reading. Maybe not the exact one he was reading at that point, but maybe one that he had read previously. And then he would sit down the way he would usually sit and be sipping his drink, the same kind of drink that he was taking. And guess what? The man noticed him the first day, noticed him the second day and the third day. And after some time, he called him and said, sorry, excuse me, I have been noticing you around here and you seem like someone who would catch my fancy a lot. I'd like to know you. And guess what? They started a conversation that led to the rebranding of GT Bank. That same man, I'm trying to recall his name. He was the one that also did the rebranding for First Bank and Coca-Cola at some point. He's a Nigerian consultant. Now, I'm sure I will recall his name somewhere along the line. Now, why did I share that story? When you know the kind of industry events that these businesses you are targeting usually attend, what do? Position yourself in those kind of events. You know that, okay, these are the kind of events they attend or they host or they like to do. That's where they should see your brand some more. Now, what are some of the challenges they are looking to solve? That's the area you should start pioneering your thought leadership and piloting your thought leadership. So you want to start writing articles that they can find online because they are looking for solutions and yours will come with great search engine optimization. You put it out there. I will talk about thought leadership towards the end of this, but thought leadership cannot be overemphasized in targeting businesses. You have to be the expert in your industry to be able to get other businesses to be able to connect with you. Now, which social media networks do they prefer? Again, we know that businesses prefer LinkedIn. So how are you positioning yourself on LinkedIn? Do you have a LinkedIn strategy? If you don't, it's one of the things that we do for you at Futuresoft. We help you create an overarching strategy on LinkedIn and even help you see how you can begin to target this audience with the right content again and again. So it's important that you know these things, okay? Now, let's look at a minute, please. All right. You also ask what kind of what questions are they asking search engines, which of course will tell you what the opportunity gaps they have, the kind of questions they are asking, and where do they spend their time online. Now, with this kind of information, you're able to now begin to narrow down to a solution that can attract a business that you are targeting. Now, create assets around campaigns. Now, with a plan in place, it's time to put it into motion. Follow best practices for each channel you incorporate into your strategy. Now, there is a best practice if you have to engage LinkedIn. There's a way you write on LinkedIn. It's different from how you write on other platforms. LinkedIn is strictly business focused. On other platforms, you can get to play a lot, and that's the kind of vibe they bring with them, right? But you have to understand that, okay, this is what works for this platform. You know that when you come on Instagram, one of the things that you must put in your strategy is you have to put in a lot of video content and image content, that is graphic content. One of the brands we manage is UPDC. If you check out UPDC PLC, you'll see how much content goes out there for that we put out for them as a brand, both on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, guess what? Every single week, there are specific designs that talks about different areas of real estate. So we want to talk about a house, and we don't just talk about the house from the angle of, would you like to have a fine house? We're asking you questions. Like, I was looking at one of the contents today for this week that was talking about, how about a house that puts your health first? Wow, really? Is it possible for the house to put your health first? But we are trying to tell you that at UPDC, we design houses that gives room or accommodation for health needs. Why? If you want to stay healthy, you want to do gym. So there is a gym in the house as well. You don't just have a house, you have a house with a gym. That's a strategy. Now, guess what? People who are fit, farm conscious want to get that kind of house. Meanwhile, ordinarily, if you had just talked about a house, it probably would not have caught their fancy. So they are checking Fit Farm and they see that. Okay, so we talk about a house that is also that you don't need a vacation from. We see a lot of that in the UPDC content. So you want to get a house that you don't need a vacation for. Why? It has lush greenery, it has a lot of space, table tennis court, it has swimming pool, it has this waterside view. So you don't need a vacation anymore. Your house is your vacation. You need that kind of house. Yes, we're able to draw out this kind of strategy and content for UPDC because we're able to understand their overall goal, their long-term goal, their short-term goal, and how they were ready to infuse all of this. And we were able to design it for them and put it into their marketing campaigns. So you have to be able to create assets and use it to run campaigns. Now, a message your team wants to spread that is typically tied to a desired action. Include a creative approach like some of the ones I've shared, useful insights, sophisticated targeting, and strong call to actions. You have to be able to do these things. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry about that, please. All right, so it's important that we know these things, and it's important that we know these things and begin to use it. All right, so having said that, let's look at step 5, measure and improve. So measure and improve. Now, when you are able to do all of this and you've engaged, you run ads, you put it in the faces of people, a lot of people, they've seen these things over time and again, you want to go back and measure and improve your targeting, your structure, your system, and all of that. Now, this is the ongoing process that keeps you moving in the right direction. In the simplest terms, you want to figure out why your high-performing content performs and why your low-performing content doesn't, so that you can make smarter decisions concerning your money and time. Now, the more vigilant you are about consulting analytics and applying your learnings, the more likely you are to surpass your goals and grow continually. Every end of the month, one of the things we do with our clients is to give them a breakdown analysis of their different contents and how they perform. We give a strategy report. So you are able to look at what is producing results and what isn't. Many businesses may not have the insight and understanding to be able to look through these analysis and go through them critically, but we're able to help you look at it and analyze for you and say, this is what you should do better. This is what you should do better. It's why we're an expert in doing these things. We help you measure and improve areas. You can look at your overarching strategy and begin to say, okay, let's pursue this. Let's repurpose this content. Let's use this, and let's use that, all right? Now, also, even with a well-researched foundation, the creation of content and campaigns inherently requires a lot of guesswork until you have substantive engagement and conversion data to rely on. Now, let your audience dictate your path. Consult metrics to pinpoint the channels, topics, and media trends that resonate most. Then double down. Meanwhile, cut or alter anything that isn't performing. Now, why is this important? It's okay to say that we like this as a company, we like to put this out. But if again, it is not engaging, you need to now redesign, taking notes that you're not putting out content for yourself as a business, you're putting out content for people's consumption. And the consumption rate and engagement rate will tell you, would most likely, again and again, impact on the conversation, on the conversion, I meant to say, of sales. So it's important to know which of our content is converting, which of our content is making sense to our audience when we put it out there. All right. Okay, so types of B2B marketing. Here are a few of the most common B2B marketing types and channels. One, content marketing, which is blogs and OBED pieces. Now, a mainstay for almost any content team, regularly updated blogs. That is, they provide organic visibility and drive inbound traffic to your site. Why is blogging important? Because, like I mentioned earlier, it is for the sake of thought leadership. In Futuresoft, we write blogs a lot. And why do we do that? It's for the sake of thought leadership. We want to be positioned as an expert in our industry. We want you to be able to look out there and see content that we've shared over time that can help you as a business reposition your own business. So when you get to read blogs and all that coming from a brand, it means that this brand has a lot of insights and knowledge about this particular thing, about this business, about this operation, to the point that you know that they can provide the solution that you want. If you're not blogging as a business, it's a major loophole that you should look out for, because social media just gives you the room to put out short content. The best you can do, if you must put out a lot of content at the same time, is to do a swipe post, right? Like on Instagram. So you do swipe post and you can put a lot of content on the swipe so that people can, scroll through and all that. But for someone to really sit down and read through in details the content that you have to provide a solution on a particular industry, a particular loophole, a particular challenge, a particular need, a particular solution, a particular product or service, then you need to blog. Now, your blog can house any number of different content formats: written copy, infographics, videos, case studies, and more. Your blogs can house all of this. Now, articles can be shared in the media as op-ed pieces that can help build thought leadership, all right? Now, you have to search. SEO best practices changes as often as Google's algorithm. Now, making this a tricky space to operate in, but any B2B marketing strategy needs to account for it, no matter what. Now, lately, the focus has been shifting away from keywords and metadata and more towards searcher intent signals. So why is that important? What are people searching for? That's what you should look out for. Instead of the metadata and all of that, you have to look out for what people are looking out for. So what are people always looking out for? Why are they looking out for these things? It's because the needs are changing. The challenges are changing. The environment is dynamic by time. So the business environment is dynamic by time. So as times begin to change, people begin to ask a different questions entirely. So guess what? The keywords will begin to shift. The metadata will begin to shift. So what are people looking out for per time? This is what should now begin to define your SEO best practice at that time. That's what you should now use to begin to design your strategy and begin to look at how you can use to achieve the kind of results that you want to achieve. So let's look at social media. Now, in brand engagement, especially in this current age, when we know that digital media has taken the lead across board, you cannot not design a marketing strategy without including social media, no matter who you are targeting, especially B2B. So both organic and paid should be used in the mix when using social media. Social networks allow you to reach and engage prospects where they are active. B2B buyers increasingly use these channels to research potential vendors for purchase decisions. So when they want to make purchase decisions, they want to look at who has been out there every time on our face. Who has been out there every time on our face? Who have we been seeing again and again and again? And that's where social media does it for you. Not so many people will subscribe to your blog and read, unless again, you have great content and you have a lot of traction on your blog. But even at that, you cannot reach 3 billion people like Facebook at once as a business. So Facebook has cut across 3.5 billion people. That's a good market space. That's a good place to market your products and services. Why? Because amongst those 3.5 billion people, there are most likely over 100 million businesses in that space. There are most likely over 200 to 500 million businesses in that space. So you want to key into that sea of opportunity. Now, you have to do gated content. So you have white papers, you have ebooks, you have brochures that you design or stuff that you want to put out there, and they are gated contents people can pay for and begin to attend. So you have like master classes, online master classes that you designed that will help people. You design it specifically to target business to businesses, to target businesses basically. And with this kind of content, you put in a lot of value. And with those kind of value, you see that these businesses, they are so attracted to your work that they feel like they want to be able to engage those contents that you are using. Okay, so standalone assets containing valuable information. Now, this downloadable document can either be gated, meaning a user must provide content information or perform another action to access or to access or ungated. Now, often used as a B2B lead generation tool. Now, you have to use this many times as a B2B lead generation tool, every time, again and again, very importantly. Now, let's look at email marketing. While its effectiveness is waning somewhat in the age of spam filters and inbox shock, email won't disappear anytime soon. To work around overloaded inboxes, some sales and marketing professionals use LinkedIn in email for lead generation. So it's important to know that email marketing cannot disappear anytime soon. So you have to work around this overload of inboxes and sales. You have to know that you can still use other channels and reach out to people. So you see that people are now beginning to do sponsored email in LinkedIn. Why? Because they feel like, okay, that's a direct way to get people's attention. Email marketing will still not fade as time goes on. Okay, now we look at multimedia content, videos, podcasts, live streaming, and all of that. And that's why in Futuresoft we have the podcast series. We have the podcast series. So now this content type can be applied in several of the previous categories mentioned here. So we have blogs, we have social media, we have emails, but it's worth singling out because it is growing so important to B2B strategies. So our podcast series in Futuresoft, you see that after we get the content, we also try to put it in the email. We also try to put it in our email and tell you, okay, we just released this podcast. We need you to listen to it, and it's addressing this, it's addressing this, it's addressing that. Now, businesses want to be able to look at these things and begin to say, okay, these people, they sort of have solutions across board for me. Some people would rather listen than read. Some people would rather watch a video than they want to listen. So you have to be able to cover all the areas in such a way that it helps you gain attention of the businesses that you are targeting. So why this person who is a researcher might want to listen to a lot of podcasts, why is listening to podcasts? He's able to tell that, okay, yes, this content, these people have the content. So in Futuresoft, our podcast series is called Digital Plug. And so we use Digital Plug as a means of reaching out to other businesses and, sharing details. Many times we repurpose the content from our blog posts into the podcast, and guess what? People who are listening to podcasts are able to hear these things, and then they're like, oh, these people, they have a strategy that can help me. They have the content, they have everything I need. So I should be able to engage them. All right. So let's also look at B2B marketing best practices. Let's look at some of the best practices for B2B marketing so that I can round off and see how we can take maybe 1 or 2 questions before we wrap up. Okay. Now, how can you set yourself up for B2B marketing success? Here are a few proven pillars that will help your team stand out and make impact. What are some of these? 1, be human. So I talked about how iPhone was launched and Steve Jobs was sharing the story of iPhone. Now, what being human means is that you should be able to connect with people at the point of, you have to be conversational in your approach. People should be able to relate, that's the word. People should be able to relate with what your business is about. Now, this might be the single greatest fallacy in B2B marketing, and it derives from the very name marketing to business instead of to people. You know why? Because B2B, many times when we say B2B, what comes to mind to many people is, okay, I am talking to a business. So they picture the business like an organization. You know, they picture the building, they picture the offices, they picture the structure and the system. But see, the structure, the system, the procedures, the values, the vision, the mission, the organization is made up of people. It is people that makes this up. So you have to understand that at the core, you are not connecting to an organization, you are connecting to a human. So if you are as well human enough to connect to a human, you will be able to gain access into these businesses. Yes, you're trying to sell to a company, but you aren't literally marketing to a building or some intangible entity. You are trying to reach actual people within the company. And like any other human being, they are driven by emotional and cognitive motivations. Yes, I recall earlier talking about how we sell to individuals and targeting emotions and saying this will not work for a business. But it's important to know that as much as you are also taking note that you have to have a strategy that will benefit the company, you have to still target their emotions and cognitive motivations. You have to be inspiring. You have to be motivated. You have to come in you have to have a story that sells the brand. Why did you start this brand? What are you looking forward to solve? How are you going to go about it? They want to hear the story. They want to be able to connect. Now, don't just learn about the companies and accounts you're pursuing. Learn about the people within them. And make sure your marketing speaks to them. So I will use UPDC as an example again, because we sort of manage the strategy for UPDC. And one of the things we do is we say humans of UPDC. What is the humans of UPDC? What's that supposed to do? It's supposed to feature some of the top executives in UPDC so that you can even get to see them, you can even get to know them, you can even get to research them. It gets to talk about their individual achievements as a people, not even in UPDC. So say someone is promoted within UPDC as a top level executive, and that person gets an international award for doing something out there. We also feature that award that the person got that is not necessarily a UPDC award in that place. Why? Because we want to show you that these humans of UPDC are actually making massive progress, touching lives, doing stuff, and you want to be able to connect with them as humans. You feel like, wow, these people, they have a great team of people. They have a great team of executives who are doing stuff. I think I like this lady's story. I like her approach. I like what she's doing. And that alone can make you feel like, I think I want to engage their business. So be human. Yes, business decisions tend to be more rational and logical in nature, but that doesn't mean your content and tone should be robotic. All right. So let's focus on targeting. Now, this was mentioned earlier, but But it's important that we repeat it, because overly broad campaigns inevitably lead to wasted time and spending. So because you are serving content and ads to people who are either uninterested or unable to influence a buying decision, it's important that you focus on targeting. You have to streamline, like the story I shared earlier, and the consultant who got the branding opportunity with GT Bank, because he was able to narrow down. He narrowed down. Instead of sending a proposal, pursuing the proposal is moved from one table to the other. He just targeted the decision maker. Straight up. Target the decision maker, influence the person in such a way that the person feels so interested in what you have to offer, and boom, spiral down. Everybody, you don't have an option. If the overall executive is already buying into it and is seeing a lot of sense in what you're saying, you don't have to go through all of the process, just narrow down. So take the time upfront to define and segment your audience. Create messaging that speaks directly to the specific people who you want to see it. The best B2B marketers and sellers today are finding ways to offer personalization at a high scale. And it's one thing you should do again and again. So focus on targeting. Before you begin to launch, hey, we have great content, put it out on social media, sit down and tell yourself, okay, this content is good. Who needs it? And why would they need it? Where would they be? Already I've discussed, I've asked critical questions on how you can focus on targeting in the previous slides, right? So you want to look at that again before you now launch that content. So don't just launch the content because you have great content. Launch a content targeting the target audience, your audience, all right? So, as a way of wrapping up, because I'm in the final slides of this, thought leadership, which is the very important part. I have talked about thought leadership to a great extent, and I will just wrap up with thought leadership, okay? And then we'll do a final review on all I have said so far. Now, thought leadership is positioning yourself as an expert in your industry. People want to be able to look at the digital media space and see Futuresoft. Why? We are experts here. Every time we put out content, you want to go through the content. We position as thought leadership. We're telling you some of the latest trends for you to look out for. Why is that so? Because we are ahead of the game. It's thought leadership. So as a business, we targeting other business. You want to be able to lead the way. They want to be able to look at you and be confident that you have a solution. You know why? You spot the trend ahead of time. I recall a meeting that Nkem had to have with the team sometime earlier this year when Twitter was banned in Nigeria. And then she called a meeting and said, so Twitter has been banned. What if other social media channels are banned? What do we do as a digital media company? It was a brainstorming session. We needed to take that leap ahead of time. So how do we go about it? What other system? Everybody had to contribute. Everybody was brainstorming. That is what it requires to be a thought leader in your space. You want to sit down and say, okay, this thing has happened now. How will it impact other businesses in the next 2-3 years? How will it impact businesses in the next 5 years? Before they begin to even see it, you started discussing it. That is thought leadership. You are thinking ahead and taking leadership in the thought leadership space. You make so much impact. You create, gated content. You create seminars. You create conferences. You create blog posts. You create videos. You talk about these things and you launch them. So you see that these are the kind of content that attract senior level executives and decision makers. It is high value type of content. And the more you use it, you begin to vet both your vendors and solution. This is the kind of content I meant to say, that they use to vet both vendors and the solutions. So this guy is a vendor, he's selling this. This guy is a vendor, he's selling this. This guy seems to be more informed on this content than this other guy. He knows a lot about it. He can deliver. So thought leadership is important. And yes, when you take up thought leadership, you can now begin to spread it across the different channels, social media, blogging, and all of that, So it's important that if you're targeting other businesses, narrow down on thought leadership and your target audience. Those two are some of the most important things you need to do in your content marketing. And you have to be able to create content in such a way that you are very flexible too. Now, I used UPTC as an example earlier, and I talked about how they say you want a house that focuses on your health. You want a house that focuses that you don't take vacation from. You are flexible with your content. You bring out the kind of stuff that will make people feel excited. Sometimes you also want to say, how would you like to lounge this weekend and just enjoy yourself? And they're like, oh my God, I need this rest too right now, and all of that. Okay, so keep context in mind. Now, as we've mentioned, personalization and relevance are essential. You want to speak the language of your customers, but that's not always enough. You also want to deliver content and ads that fit thematically with where they are viewed. So you also know that, okay, this content fits so much for Instagram. This content fits for Facebook. This content fits for LinkedIn, and you can have a content that also fits on all platforms put together that speaks value of your brand. So for instance, shorter videos with quick hooks perform better on social media feeds, whereas a longer format is probably better suited for YouTube. You have to know that these things are okay. These are how these things work. Now, it takes a different copy angle to catch someone scrolling through LinkedIn than other networks. Put yourself in the end user's shoes and try to adopt their mindset. Okay, so now let's also look at, this is the final stage where I get to review all that we've looked at so far. So breaking down the B2B marketing. So we are summarizing the most important takeaways from our exploration of modern B2B marketing. And here are some key considerations to keep in mind. One, although it's business-to-business marketing, you're still speaking to humans. Don't forget that, human beings. And don't fall into the trap of being overly formal or robotic. Okay, now the foundational steps in creating a B2B marketing strategies are developing your vision, defining your audience, identifying tactics and channels, putting content and campaigns into motion, and then continually measuring for optimization. Also, don't forget, popular types of B2B marketing content includes blogs, search, white papers, social media, email, and video. Also, don't forget, truly effective B2B marketing is conversational, targeted and contextually relevant. Thought leadership content is among the most effective in this category. Lastly, LinkedIn should also be an integral component of any B2B social media marketing mix. All right, so thank you very much for having me on today's Launch and Learn. I hope we've been able to do justice to this topic. All right. So I would like to know if you have questions, if there are other things that would like to, quickly attend to, and then before we wrap up for today.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, David.
Okay, so basically for me, I think it's a wonderful session. I don't have any question, so I just think I would then go through the slide and really digest the information in depth. But I think it was really great and in depth. It covered and touched a whole lot. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, David, for that amazing feedback. I appreciate you.
I think I have one question. How do brands sort of go about actually creating their B2B marketing strategies, right? So what are the sort of 5 or 6 key things that they need to do in order to actually implement all those things that you've presented? Because it's quite a lot, right? So you talked about social media marketing, content marketing, email marketing, thought leadership. You talked about, how you use gated content and all of that. And for a lot of brands, they don't have sort of like a full-time social media or digital marketing manager, right? Or even a strategist that can do that. So how do you go from, I want to sort of change my B2B marketing using digital to actual implementation?
Okay, so I shared a few tips earlier when I was talking about creating your long-term goal and your short-term goal. So when you're doing that, you want to be able to, first of all, look at after you've been able to do that, you want to now say, okay, these are the people I'm targeting. How do I design content that will fit them part time? So like we do a social media calendar, and with that social media calendar, you're able to put out content in different days that will meet some of these needs and challenges. And as you're able to do that, you're able to narrow down to the kind of content that works per time. So these are the solutions we have. These are the needs that we know that, okay, our clients are most likely, or the businesses we are targeting are most likely going to be facing. So you have to be able to say, okay, let's have a social media calendar that addresses this. Of course, your calendar is not cast in stone, because as things begin to evolve, you can also begin to change some of the content to also adjust to some of these things. So you want to be able to have a social media calendar, and that calendar is a part of what you use to now begin to monitor the process of your marketing every time, so that you don't have to come back again and again every time to say, okay, I am going to be sitting down today to study the market and then know what I want to put out. Once you do your research once, and you're able to say, okay, this is what is needed in the market, this is what I need to do. You create a social media strategy, and then with that social media strategy, you begin to design content that fits in, that can attract these people, and begin to, put them out on the different platforms that they fit. And aside that, you also begin to sponsor them and push them out to more people, so that beyond that audience that you have targeted, more people can also begin to see them. So I don't know if I've answered that question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so I guess we'll call it a day here. I want to appreciate everyone on this call. Thank you for joining and being a part of this amazing session. Our next launch and then will be coming up shortly, and we're sure to put it out there. Make sure not to miss the next edition. Every now and then we come up with very, very much great content for your businesses, especially as it relates to digital media and how you can continue to sell, improve your marketing, and make progress as a business. So we look forward to seeing you in the next edition of the Launch and Learn with Futuresoft. And of course, we'll be having another amazing facilitator from Futuresoft. Thank you so much. Catch you next time. Have a wonderful day.